Let's talk about the ground game now. Looking at these numbers, this is kind of when the Cardinals, took over a bit. 120 overall rushing yards compared to the Saints' 54. That's on 25 carries, 4.8 yards per rush, and of course a big rushing touchdown from Andre Ellington. What do you see from the rush game?
Let me say this. Early in training camp, this was a weakness for the team.
Big time.
Running back. It was a critical deficiency that they had on this team. There was no depth, right? And Arians was openly questioning these guys because they couldn't stay on the field. Look at David Johnson. Everybody was talking in the post-game interviews yesterday, hey, have you seen that speed from David Johnson before? And the word was, yeah, one time. It was that first play in training camp when he opened it up, but he pulled his hammy. So they got one glimpse of it, and he got injured. He couldn't get back on the field for about 3 weeks. Arians started putting the verbal pressure on him, and then he showed up for practice. And then you saw little glimpses of it in that second preseason game, the second home game, right against San Diego.
Right.
And then, yesterday, man, I'm telling you, I mean, he found another gear.
He did.
All right? And then Chris Johnson, knowing that he can come in. When Ellington went down yesterday, you weren't sweating it as much, knowing, okay, let's give Chris Johnson some carries now. Let's see what he can do.
And that is a tip of the cap to the Cardinals. Really giving themselves a support system back there, knowing that a young guy like Andre Ellington can go down. What are we going to do if he does?
Chris Johnson was no slouch last year. I mean, he averaged 4.3 yards a carry. The Cardinals averaged NFL worst 3.3 yards a carry last year, okay? So it's not like he's washed up. I just saw on Twitter also, we heard a little earlier, Andre Ellington, mild sprained PCL. There's Bruce Arians said no timetable for his return. They say 1 to 3 weeks. He could play against Chicago, but it sounds like he might be out for a week or two.
Like
That's what you say on Mondays, I think. So you throw the Bears off guard a little bit so they don't know who they're preparing for. I would be shocked if he played next week. Why rush it if you don't have to?
But last year, when Ellington went down, it's like, who do we have left? You had Brain Kerwin-Williams, you got Stephon Taylor. Now you got a couple of guys, Johnson and Johnson, who you're confident could reel off 4 yards a carry, at least have a respectable ground game.
Here's the biggest illustration of how important it is to win a game in the NFL. It's just, you live and die with every game. I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, we all know what it's like in NFL cities. But if the Cardinals hadn't won yesterday, everything that we're talking about as being a positive would be freaking out about.
Yeah.
Right? They're major problems. Panic time. What are they going to do? Right? That's why yesterday's win just changes when a team wins in the NFL. Man, could you imagine being a coach? No wonder it's such a roller coaster, right? Because the highs are so high and those lows, man, they're devastating.
And we will talk about the Ellington injury in depth a little bit later. But I mean, is this? I mean, we do talk about his backups, but is this reason to panic when your number one running back may go down? We don't know for how long.
But going back to last year, and I don't have the statistic in front of me, but I remember reading something like going back to, I think, 2009, the Cardinals were last in the NFL in rushing yards per game. It's been a weakness, even when they made the Super Bowl. They were last or next to last in the NFL in rushing yards per game. But now it just doesn't seem like such a liability. And, Ellington had found room to run yesterday, 69 yards on 12 carries, I think it was.
Yeah.
He was stopped in the backfield a couple times, and I think that was maybe a default of Jonathan Cooper, who got it together a little later in the game. But, again, having a rookie like David Johnson, who both David Johnson and Chris Johnson can both catch the ball, too. That's such a weapon. You have to respect the pass even when you think they're going to run.
Absolutely.
Well, you better not be panicking with one player out early in the season, right? Because that's the NFL.
Unless it's Palmer.
Oh,
then you
panic.
Palmer.
Yeah.
And you're down to your fourth-string quarterback. That's when he starts pitching.
A little bit.
Let's talk about the defense, man. We can go on and on about how good of a performance this was against Drew Brees and the New Orleans Saints. I mean, they were pretty much locked down. Calais Campbell showed up, did his job. What do you think?
Good enough, right?
Good enough, yeah.
You hold the Saints under 20. That's usually a pretty good accomplishment, right? And they did. They did what they had to do. It was first game for Belcher.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody was anxious to see what he would do. He was aggressive, right? I mean, that's a tough act to follow with Todd Bowles, with the blitz-happy schemes that he had. But they did a good job.
Yeah. Cardinals are now 19-2 when they allow 20 or fewer points in the Bruce Arians. That tells you you do just enough. You don't have to lock it down. You don't have to shut the team out. You just have to do enough, and that's what the defense did. Again, clamping down in the red zone when the Saints were threatening to score.
Yeah. Now we're hoping to get your boy Butch on the line here in just a few minutes. But while we're waiting, let's talk about the concerns from yesterday. There are a few. Those couple big plays from the Saints. Can't let that happen.
Sure.
Substitutions were an issue at one point. But as Bruce Arians said after the game, these are very fixable mistakes.
It's what you like the coach to say, right? I mean, that they're not urgent, like really glaring problems, and I think he's right. I mean, there were some things that they can iron out in practice pretty easily. You know what? You don't want to overinflate what you did yesterday. Hey, it's one game. Great job. You're off to a good start. You're even with St. Louis, right? You got a game up on Seattle, which is big, but the Bears are coming. They're going to be hungry. They're going to be angry. It's on the road. It's going to be a little bit difficult or more difficult environment next week. So I think that's the thing. And there's no way Arians allows them to do anything other than flip the page now. You know, they earned probably an extra half day off, you know, in the NFL. Come in on Monday for a little bit, then you're gone. And then tomorrow they'll have their regular day off during the week and back to work on Wednesday. But again, this one's, it alleviates all the gains from yesterday if you go to Chicago and lay an egg. So.
Absolutely right. And that's as we mentioned earlier, that's no easy place to win. What were some concerns you saw?
That penalty, the Saints' only touchdown came on a fourth down when the Saints were ready to punt. And it was after a timeout, and the Cardinals had too many men on the field.
Yeah.
That can't happen. You know, and that's going to, and I'll tell you what, if the Cardinals had lost and had been by less than a touchdown, that's what we'd be talking about today, is that penalty. So, you know, an easily correctable thing, but especially after a timeout, you have a whole preseason to work on that stuff. That concerns me. I know the offensive line looked good yesterday. I guess Pro Football Focus gave 4 of their 5 offensive linemen positive grades for yesterday. Ted Larson did a great job filling in for Mike Upati. But still, the Saints don't have a great pass rush. I think the Cardinals are going to be a little more tested next week. So again, you take it on a game-by-game basis. You know, they did well, but I don't think it's problem solved all of a sudden. I'm still kind of taking a wait-and-see approach with the O-line.
Yeah, and of course we'll break down that Chicago Bears matchup a little bit later in the show. But look at those defensive numbers. The Saints allowed 427 yards overall. Actually, we'll get to that in just a minute. Right now, we've got Butch.
All right.
On the line, your boy.
Okay, first show. Let's crank it off with a great guest from Boston, Butch Stearns. He's sports anchor, big-time personality in Boston. He works at Fox Sports in Boston. He's the host of the Patriots postgame on WEEI radio in Boston. I bet his ears are still ringing from the end of that talk, the end of the show, and the end of the game on Thursday night. Butch, welcome, man. Thanks for joining us on our first Cardinals countdown of the season.
Glad to be with you guys. Hold on, let me put on my headset so I can mess up with your frequency and stuff, because that's what the Patriots do, you know.
Hey, I was wondering how long it would take for you to come up with some sort of an excuse for that team. Give me a break, Stearns.
Hey, 9
listening to
parades
the radio
in
blog,
11
you
years,
know,
we know everybody
who
hates
does
us.
that? Is that Bill Belichick personally
Say all
doing
you
that,
want,
putting in the errant feed into the opposing team's headsets?
Absolutely, whatever it takes to win. You know, on that subject though, Tom and guys, what I found interesting was Bill Belichick last week on a conference call after the NFL diffused that story, coming out and showing a different side than he rarely shows in public, and really, if I had to paraphrase, saying, look, a lot of guys don't want championships in this uniform, and if you want to discredit them, then prove it. Then go ahead. It was refreshing as a Patriots fan to hear him say that and do that. I mean, let's be honest. A big part of this is that they win and other teams don't. So they're always going to call them cheaters. They're in a no-win situation, but they went out and proved it once again. Brady did on Thursday night.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I agree with that, because sometimes you wonder, how do they do it? Belichick is so unhuman with his emotions and the way he talks. But the fact that he actually did say something of substance after the game, he referenced it. He didn't just throw it off, we're getting ready for next week, because it isn't a fluke. They still have to win these games in the Super Bowl and in the playoffs. So I can understand him getting a little defensive after a while. Is that what the callers were like?
Well, you know, it's interesting. Red Auerbach has been brought up a lot this week comparing Belichick, because Red was famous for the Lakers, for example, coming out and saying, oh, we had cold water in our showers. We had, you know, the heat was turned up in our locker room. They didn't give us cold water when we were drinking in the snack. And Red would always say, if they're even talking about that, they're done. I've got a huge edge on them. So Belichick does the same thing. I mean, quite honestly, you know, I think there's a combination of things going on here. Did they push the envelope? Yes. Do they treat people around the league, whether it's media, whether it's the NFL, with arrogance? Yes. So they reap a lot what they sow. However, they prepare. They have left no stone unturned. And, oh, by the way, they have one of the greatest quarterbacks who's ever played the game. So if you're going to beat the Patriots, it's just that. You got to beat them. They rarely lose a game because they're unprepared or don't come up with some wrinkle that people weren't thinking about. Ben Roethlisberger still doesn't know if that shift was illegal or not. How embarrassing is that to him?
Yeah, now, I mean, Butch, I got to ask you, just how sick of all these gates are you? Headset gate, deflate gate, spy gate.
Well, you gotta understand, and I'm sure you can because all sports fans have gone through this. But in Boston, it's gone on for so long, and it's taken some epic proportions. Even people around the country have kind of, said, really, inflated footballs for Tom Brady are the same as a drug violation or beating women? I mean, come on. But it's gone on for so long that there's a bunker mentality, which, Tom, you know this from working here. You didn't have to foster anyway. There's always been this us against the world mentality for Boston sports fans. We are obnoxious. We know it. We don't care. We think we're better than everybody else. New Yorkers actually believe it. But so really it's gone on to the point of the games couldn't be more fun because really from a fan perspective, it's come down to let's point to the scoreboard. And they're not going to win every game. They haven't every year. They might lose in Buffalo this weekend because that's a bee's nest. But it's sure going to be fun watching them trying to disprove all the critics.
Yeah, Brett, these gates, they feed into all the insecurities of New England fans, man. I'm sure you want them to keep coming on so you can just shove it at the rest of the country. I know that's what, and believe me, you guys have dealt with so much, like 9 parades, right, with all your sports teams. Way to endure all of that.
Yeah, all at once.
Well, as you probably know, you do, Tom, and guys, you probably know this. Red Sox-Yankees still runs deep. There are plenty of other rivalries from a Boston perspective, but Yankees fans, ever since the Red Sox came back from down 3 games to 9-4, really, they still try to throw the 27 championships in your face, and it's like, really? 3 parades in the last 10 years? What do you have to throw at us? So, yeah, there's always that, but, Boston teams have sort of fed off of each other. I mean, from a sports perspective, it's tons of fun covering this. It's never boring. From a TV sports perspective, we're in the A block all the time. I mean, John Jastrzemski and Jim McNally, the 2 ball attendants or Patriots employees, just got their jobs back. And if I were the Patriots, I'd put them right back on handling the balls just to tell everybody, fine, you proved nothing in the first place, so why not put them back in their jobs?
Right. I'd be shocked if they didn't do that. Hey, Butch, let me ask you this. The reason that Tom Brady fought this so hard, is he so obsessed with getting that 5th Super Bowl to pass Joe Montana? I mean, you know Brady a little bit. I mean, you've been around him since he got to Boston. Is that true? Is there some reality to that he is so obsessed with catching him? And this is probably his best opportunity, and he's not going to get that many more chances. But winning 5 Super Bowls, is that what really fuels him?
Yes and no. It's beyond 5 Super Bowls, Tom. There's 2 points I want to make about this. One is that Brady really believes he did nothing wrong. He really believes he did nothing wrong. What did he do wrong? He wanted the balls a certain way. And oh, by the way, and I've heard this from people close to him, oh, by the way, he and Peyton Manning were brought in by the NFL to lead the charge about trying to make the game better so quarterbacks could have the balls the way they want. The critics say he orchestrated the code red. He wanted those balls down. He says he did nothing wrong, so he really believes that. The second thing is all that Brady's been all about. I mean, let's just paint the picture, and I think we all know the story. He was a 6th-round draft pick, 199. He cried on draft day because of the way he's drafted. Since that day, he's gone out to prove everybody wrong, and he's never stopped doing that. He wants to play till he's 45. I don't think he's going to do it, but somebody try and tell him that. He is a different breed. Right. In this town, there was Bobby Orr, there was Ted Williams, there was, Bill Russell and Larry Bird. He's right up there on the Mount Rushmore. When he leaves, it'll be different. There's been other athletes in every town like him, but he's been unique like that. He's driven to win more than anybody I've ever seen. So it's about 5. It's about 6, 7, and 8 if he wants. I mean, LeBron said that when he went to Miami. Brady really believes it.
Now, Butch, real quick, I'm going to ask you to put your New England bias aside if that's possible. Joe Montana or Tom Brady, the GOAT, greatest of all time.
Oh, God, don't get him started, Jason.
Just as quick as you can.
I get it. I like where you're going.
Butch Stearns?
I like where you're going.
Tom Brady, Joe Montana. Which one are you going?
Say that again?
Tom Brady or Joe Montana, greatest of all time. Quick.
I'm going Tom Brady. And it's not because of my Boston bias.
Shocker. Butch, thanks
how are
so
you
much
answering
for joining
that
us
question?
today, man. We appreciate it.
Over Brady if you're picking him.
All right, thanks buddy. Appreciate it.